The hotel manager threw the muddy suitcase across the marble floor like it was trash, and every rich person in the lobby turned to look at the black woman holding a feverish little boy against her chest. Brown rainwater streaked down her coat. One of her shoes made a wet sound with every step. Graham Whitmore pointed toward the glass doors and said, "This is not a shelter, ma'am." The woman bent slowly, picked up a dark blue leather folder from beside the broken zipper, and said nothing. 3 hours earlier, Naomi Brooks sat in the back of a rideshare with her son Caleb curled against her side, his cheek hot against her palm. The driver kept glancing at them in the mirror, not with judgment, but with worry. "You sure this is the place?" he asked as the gates of Magnolia Crown Resort appeared ahead. Tall iron bars wrapped in white roses and gold lights. Naomi looked through the rain-spotted window at the glowing entrance. The valet line, the black cars, the women lifting silk dresses above puddles. "Yes," she said, tightening her hand around the handle of the old suitcase by her knees. Inside it, beneath a folded sweater and Caleb's inhaler, was a dark blue leather folder with a silver clasp. She touched it once, the way someone touches a door key before entering a house that used to be locked. Caleb stirred. "Mom, are they gonna have soup?" "I'll find you something warm," she whispered. "Promise." The rideshare stopped short of the front awning because a valet waved them away. "Service and trance is around back," the young man called, barely looking inside. Naomi opened the door before the driver could argue. Cold water splashed over her ankles. Caleb held her neck with one arm while she pulled the suitcase with the other, its wheels dragging through a muddy rut beside the flower beds. By the time she reached the main doors, her coat was wet, her curls were pinned back but loosening, and the hem of her pants was stained brown. Inside, the lobby smelled of lilies, polished wood, and expensive perfume. A banner above the staircase read, "Annual Investor Gala." Crystal glasses clicked. A string quartet played near the fountain. For one breath, Naomi stood beneath the chandelier with her child in her arms and her muddy suitcase at her feet, and the whole room seemed to decide what she was worth. The front desk clerk opened her mouth, but Graham Whitmore arrived first. Tall, silver-haired, perfect suit, perfect smile for the people behind Naomi. That smile vanished when he faced her. "Can I help you?" "I have an appointment with the executive office," Naomi said. "Name?" "Naomi Brooks." He looked at her shoes, then at Caleb's damp hoodie. "The gala is private." "I'm aware." "Then you're aware you can't stand here dripping mud on imported stone." Caleb coughed into her shoulder. Naomi shifted him higher. "My son needs a quiet place to sit. Then I'll explain." Graham laughed once, quietly enough to sound polite to the room. "No, ma'am. You will explain outside." He grabbed her suitcase. "Don't touch that." But he had already lifted it. The zipper split when it hit the floor. Clothes spilled out. Caleb's medicine rolled under a brass table. The dark blue folder slid across the marble and stopped near the front desk. A bellman named Malik stepped forward, but Graham cut him off with a look. "Security," Graham said. Naomi knelt, one hand still holding Caleb, the other gathering what she could. Her fingers closed around the blue folder. For the first time, Graham noticed the silver letters pressed into the leather. His eyes narrowed, but before he could read them, Naomi stood. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, reading his name tag. "I hope you treat every guest better when no one important is watching." Graham's face hardened. "Get her out." And as security moved toward her, the gala announcer's microphone crackled upstairs. Security did not put hands on Naomi at first. They surrounded her the way expensive places surrounded trouble, close enough to shame her, far enough to pretend they were still polite. Caleb's fingers tightened around her collar. "Mom," he whispered, his voice small and rough. Naomi kept one palm against the back of his head and bent to reach the inhaler rolling beneath the brass table. But Graham stepped in front of it with his polished shoe. "You can collect your things outside." Malik, the bellman, looked down at the inhaler, then at Caleb's damp face. For half a second he hesitated. Then he moved. "Sir, the kid needs that." Graham's eyes cut toward him. "Malik, return to your station." It's his medicine, Malik said, quieter now. But he still crouched and picked it up. Naomi saw the risk before he did. She saw Graham's jaw tighten, saw the front desk clerk lower her eyes, saw the invisible line every worker in that lobby had learned not to cross. Malik placed the inhaler in Naomi's hand. "Thank you," she said. Graham smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We'll discuss your employment after the gala." Malik's face changed. Not fear exactly. More like a man who had rent due Friday and had just heard the lock turn. Naomi could have walked away then. She should have. The final transfer papers were still in her folder. Evelyn was probably already upstairs, wondering why she had not arrived. Every minute Naomi stayed in that lobby gave Graham more chances to paint her as unstable, disruptive, unfit to stand before investors. But then a crash came from the service hallway. A silver tray hit the floor. Crystal glasses shattered across the stone. A young kitchen runner stood frozen beside a wet patch near the wall. Her brown hands lifted, her apron soaked with soup. Graham spun around as if the sound had personally insulted him. "Are you kidding me?" The girl stammered. "Sir, the ceiling is leaking near the corridor. I told maintenance." "You told excuses," Graham snapped. "Do you know what this gala costs?" Guests were turning again. Phones were rising. The girl dropped to her knees, grabbing broken glass with bare fingers. Naomi saw blood bead at the edge of her thumb. That was the moment she made her choice. She handed Caleb to Malik. "Hold him for 1 second." Malik's eyes widened. "Ma'am, 1 second." Naomi crossed the lobby before Graham could stop her, crouched beside the runner, and caught her wrist before another shard could cut deeper. "Don't use your hands. Get a broom and a wet floor sign." The girl blinked at her through tears. "I'll be fired." "Not for a leak you reported." Naomi looked toward the wall. Water slid in a thin line from the edge of a recessed light, dripping near an extension cord hidden behind a floral stand. Her voice sharpened. "Move that cord now. Shut power to this section." Graham marched toward her. "You do not give orders in my hotel." Naomi stood, holding a blood-specked napkin around the runner's finger. "No, but I know a safety violation when I see one." The words landed harder than she intended. A few investors looked toward the cord. Graham noticed. His face cooled into something more dangerous than anger. "Security, remove her immediately. She is interfering with operations." "She helped me," the runner whispered. "Quiet," Graham said. Naomi turned to Malik. Caleb was coughing again. Her folder was under her arm. The gala stairs were 10 yards away. Her appointment was upstairs. Her chance to enter cleanly was disappearing. Still, she looked at the runner and said, "Get that cut washed. Document the leak. Take a picture before anyone dries it." Graham lifted his phone and began recording Naomi. For the record, this woman entered private property, harassed staff, and disrupted a major investor event. Naomi froze for half a breath. That recording could ruin the announcement before it began. It could make her look like the problem instead of the witness. Caleb reached for her. Malik whispered, "Ma'am, you need to go." But Naomi's eyes stayed on Graham's phone as she realized something colder than the rain outside. He was not just removing her. He was building a story before she had the chance to tell the truth. Naomi did not argue with the camera. She looked straight into the phone lens, rain still clinging to the ends of her hair. Caleb's inhaler closed in her fist. "Then record all of it," she said. "Record the leak. Record the broken glass. Record the medicine your staff tried to keep from a sick child." Graham's thumb shifted slightly over the screen, as if he had not expected her voice to stay that steady. Behind him, 2 investors murmured to each other. One glanced at the water near the electrical cord and stepped back. That tiny movement told Naomi the room had seen enough to become dangerous for Graham, but not enough to become safe for her. A security guard touched her elbow. Malik moved like he wanted to stop him, but Naomi shook her head once. Not yet. She let them guide her through the side corridor, past the floral displays and the black velvet ropes, into a narrow employee hallway where the music from the lobby became a dull throb behind the walls. The moment the door swung shut, the resort changed faces. The marble disappeared. The floor became gray rubber. The air smelled of detergent, fryer oil, wet uniforms, and panic. A housekeeper pressed herself against a cart to let them pass. A line cook whispered, "That's her." But Naomi could not tell whether he meant trouble or something else. Her phone vibrated inside her coat. Evelyn Carter's name flashed across the screen. Naomi answered before the second buzz. "Where are you?" Evelyn asked, her voice low and clipped. "Near the service corridor." "Why?" "Because the front door had opinions." A pause. Then paper rustled on Evelyn's end. "Naomi, listen to me carefully. The board vote is complete, but the announcement is not legal until the final transfer statement is introduced at the gala. Do not confront management before we put you on record." Naomi looked through the small wireglass window in the door. Graham stood in the lobby, speaking to security with the calm posture of a man already rewriting what had happened. "He threw my bag. I know you're angry." "No," Naomi said. "I'm observant." She glanced down at the dark blue folder under her arm. Mud had streaked one corner. The silver letters pressed into the leather had caught Graham's eye for only a second, but it was enough. HR. Brooks Hospitality Renewal. To most people, it could have looked like a charity file, a vendor binder, maybe a loan application. To anyone who had sat in the right meeting, it meant acquisition. Evelyn exhaled. "Keep that folder closed until I get there." He almost read it. Then he almost learned too soon. Caleb leaned against Naomi's hip, his lashes heavy. The kitchen runner came around the corner with a bandage on her thumb and a phone hidden against her apron. She stopped when she saw Naomi. "Ma'am," she whispered. "I took the picture. The leak, the cord, everything." Naomi's face softened. "What's your name?" "Rosa." "Rosa, send it to yourself first, not the hotel email." Rosa swallowed. "They check those." That answer settled into Naomi like a stone dropped in water. She looked past Rosa, down the corridor, where a bulletin board held cheerful employee slogans beside a handwritten note. "No phone used during service. Violations will be documented." Under it, someone had scratched one word into the cork with a pen. "Watched." Evelyn was still on the line. "Naomi?" Naomi lowered her voice. "How many staff complaints did the seller disclose?" 4. "There are more than 4. Another silence. This one was sharper. "What did you find?" Naomi watched Denise Hall, the HR director, step into the far end of the hallway in a cream suit, smiling gently at an older housekeeper while removing a paper from the woman's hand. The smile looked kind from a distance. The housekeeper's shoulders looked defeated up close. "Not enough," Naomi said. "Not yet." Denise folded the paper and slipped it into her folder before noticing Naomi. Her smile did not disappear. It adjusted. "Ms. Brooks," she said carefully, as if testing whether the name belonged to a nuisance or a threat. Naomi tucked the blue folder tighter beneath her arm. Now she understood why the secret could not be spoken too soon. If Graham was the hand pushing people out, someone else had been keeping the doors locked from the inside. Denise said Naomi's name with the softness of someone offering tea, but her fingers tightened around the folder she had just taken from the housekeeper. "I'm sorry for the confusion downstairs," she said. "Large events make people nervous." Naomi looked at the paper tucked under Denise's arm. "Is that an employee complaint?" Denise's smile held. "It's a scheduling concern. Nothing for a guest to worry about." "I didn't say I was a guest." The hallway seemed to shrink around that sentence. Rosa looked down. Malik appeared at the service door with Caleb's small backpack over one shoulder and Naomi's damaged suitcase in his hand. "I found the rest of your things," he said. The zipper hung open like a wound. "Thank you," Naomi said. Caleb reached for the backpack, and Malik handed it over gently, like it was worth more than every champagne glass in the ballroom. Denise watched the exchange, measuring it. "Ms. Brooks, the executive reception is upstairs. I can escort you through the staff elevator so we avoid more misunderstanding." The word was wrapped in velvet and poison. Naomi lifted Caleb into her arms, took the suitcase handle from Malik, and shook her head.
No.
Malik can show me the way. Denise's eyes flicked to him. Malik is assigned to valet overflow. Then reassign him. That's not how we handle staffing during investor events. Naomi held Denise's gaze. Tonight seems full of things that need handling differently. For the first time, Denise's smile thinned. She stepped aside. Malik led Naomi through a service elevator that smelled faintly of metal and lemon cleaner. When the doors opened upstairs, the resort turned rich again. Thick carpet swallowed every footstep. Gold-framed photographs lined the hallway. Governors shaking hands, brides on balconies, golf tournaments, charity checks held by smiling executives. At the end stood a private reception room guarded by 2 staff members with earpieces. Inside, money spoke quietly. Men in tailored suits stood in clusters with crystal tumblers. Women in satin dresses bent over name cards and donation envelopes. A glass wall overlooked the rain-dark golf course, lit by soft blue floodlights. No one shouted here. No one needed to. A man with a silver watch glanced at Naomi's muddy shoes and then looked away, embarrassed not by what had happened to her, but by being close enough to see it. Evelyn Carter crossed the room fast, her heels sharp against the carpet until she saw Caleb asleep against Naomi's shoulder. Her face changed. Is he all right? He needs warmth and a place to sit. Evelyn turned to a server. Private lounge. Now. Naomi stopped her. Not because of me. Because any parent in this building should be offered that before being judged. Evelyn understood the correction. Of course. Graham entered the reception room 30 seconds later, freshly composed, phone in hand, tie straightened. He did not expect to see Naomi standing beside the board's attorney. His eyes went first to Evelyn, then to the blue folder under Naomi's arm, then to Malik near the door. Ms. Carter, Graham said smoothly. I was just preparing an incident report about this woman. Evelyn's voice stayed neutral. Then prepare it carefully. Denise arrived behind him. We're trying to keep the gala on schedule. Naomi set the damaged suitcase beside a velvet chair and opened it just enough to take out Caleb's sweater. She saw board members watching the mud fall in small flakes onto the expensive carpet. She did not apologize for existing in the room. She wrapped her son first, then looked toward the reception desk where printed investor packets sat in perfect stacks. One sheet listed tonight's service standards: discretion, elegance, anticipation. Naomi picked it up, read it once, and asked, "Where's the emergency guest care protocol?" Graham blinked. "Excuse me? A child was coughing in your lobby. A staff member was bleeding near exposed electrical risk. A guest was removed without documentation. Which protocol did your team follow?" The room went quiet in the way powerful rooms did when someone asked a question with paperwork behind it. Denise answered before Graham could. "We can review that after the program." "No," Naomi said. "We'll review it before anyone in this room invests another dollar in a culture they have not seen." Evelyn's eyes moved to Naomi, a warning and a question at once. Naomi knew the risk. Push too hard now and Graham would strike first. Stay quiet, and the same people who hurt Rosa, Malik, and the housekeeper would smile under chandeliers and call it leadership. Across the room, Graham lowered his phone, opened the video he had recorded, and sent it to someone with one quick tap. Naomi saw the motion. Denise saw Naomi see it. And for the first time that night, the gatekeepers of Magnolia Crown stopped treating her like mud on their marble and started treating her like a problem that had learned their names. The first crisis came quietly, not with shouting, but with the soft beep of a handheld radio on a server's belt. "We've got a donor at table 6 refusing security," a voice crackled. "He's drunk. He's asking for Graham." Graham's mouth twitched as if the problem had arrived exactly when he needed it. "Excuse me," he said, already turning toward the ballroom doors. "Some of us still have a gala to manage." Naomi followed the sound before anyone invited her. Evelyn caught her wrist. "Naomi." Naomi looked down at Caleb, now asleep in a lounge chair with Malik standing nearby like a guard who had not been officially hired. I'm not revealing anything, she said. I'm watching how they lead. In the ballroom, the chandeliers made every glass shine, but the corner near table 6 had gone stiff. A red-faced investor in a navy tuxedo had cornered Janelle near the dessert station, one hand wrapped around a champagne flute, the other pointing too close to her face. I asked for the reserve bourbon 20 minutes ago, he barked. Do you people not understand donors? Janelle kept her tray balanced, but Naomi saw the tremor in her wrist. Graham moved in with his polished smile. Mr. Whitaker, I apologize. She's new. Janelle's face dropped. Naomi stepped beside her before the blame could settle. She's not the issue. The investor blinked at Naomi's muddy coat. Who are you? Someone who can count drinks and exits. She gently took the untouched flute from the edge of the table before his elbow knocked it over. Sir, you've had enough alcohol for the evening. We can bring coffee, water, or a car service. Graham hissed under his breath. Stop! But Naomi had already turned to Janelle. Get him a private room off the East Hall, not the lobby. No audience. No argument. Ask security to stand outside the door, not over his shoulder. And write the incident before the memory gets cleaned up. Janelle stared at her, then moved. Not because Naomi sounded rich, because Naomi sounded right. Malik appeared with a pitcher of water. Naomi gave him one small nod, and he understood without being told to perform. Within 3 minutes, the investor was seated away from the crowd. The broken tension around table 6 loosened, and the quartet never stopped playing. It looked like elegance. It was actually damage control. Evelyn watched from the doorway, eyes narrowed with something close to respect. Graham watched too, but what moved across his face was not respect. It was calculation. Naomi returned to the reception room and found Janelle waiting near the service alcove, holding a clipboard against her chest. I wrote it down, she whispered. Time, witness names, what he said. Good. Janelle hesitated, then slid another folded sheet from behind the incident report. I wasn't supposed to keep this. Naomi opened it. A weekly staffing grid. Housekeeping, kitchen, valet, front desk. Names circled in red. Single mothers on doubles. Older workers on closing shifts. Immigrant staff placed in back corridors during investor hours. Malik's name had a note beside it. Visible only if needed. Naomi's fingers tightened on the page. Who made these marks? Janelle looked toward Denise across the room. HR says it's about presentation. The blue folder under Naomi's arm felt heavier now. It was no longer just proof that she owned the building. It was becoming a witness to why she had to change it. She slipped the staffing grid inside, beside the transfer papers, mud staining the clean legal tabs. Graham saw the movement. Denise leaned close to him and murmured something. A moment later, Graham lifted his phone again, not to record this time, but to send a message. Across the ballroom, a security supervisor looked at Naomi, then at Malik, then nodded once toward the service hall. Naomi saw it happen. Her small victory had cost them their silence, and now the resort was preparing to answer. Graham did not shout when he struck back. That was what made it dangerous. He stepped into the center of the investor reception with his calmest voice, one hand resting over his tie, the other holding his phone like evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption tonight, he said. Unfortunately, we have an unauthorized individual moving through staff areas, upsetting employees, and presenting herself as connected to executive leadership. Naomi stood near the side wall with the blue folder under her arm. She felt Malik shift beside her, but she did not move. A lie spoken in a polished voice could travel farther than truth spoken in anger. Denise came forward with a printed incident form on a silver clipboard, her cream suit spotless, her expression full of professional regret. For everyone's safety, we're handling it discreetly, she said. This resort takes security very seriously. The word security made several investors look at Naomi's muddy shoes again. Graham tapped his screen, and a short video appeared on the ballroom display. It showed Naomi crouched beside broken glass in the service corridor, speaking sharply, Rosa crying, staff rushing behind her. The clip had no sound. It began after the tray fell and ended before Naomi pointed out the leaking ceiling and exposed cord. Without context, she looked like chaos. A murmur rolled through the room. Janelle's hand flew to her mouth. Malik whispered, "That's not what happened." Naomi's eyes stayed on the screen. She counted the camera angle, the timestamp, the missing seconds. The edit was clean but not perfect. The lobby clock in the background jumped 4 minutes. Graham had rushed. "We attempted to assist her," Graham continued, "but she became disruptive when asked to leave. We now believe she may have taken internal documents." Denise lowered her eyes as if the accusation saddened her. That was her gift. She could make cruelty sound like policy. Naomi looked down at the blue folder. The staffing grid Janelle had given her was inside now. So were the transfer papers. If security searched her publicly, Graham could call the real documents stolen before anyone knew they were hers. Evelyn stepped forward, but Naomi lifted one finger without looking at her. Not yet. If the lawyer solved this, Graham would still call Naomi a protected outsider. Naomi needed him to reveal the shape of his lie. She turned to Janelle. "Do you still have the original incident report?" Janelle nodded, trembling. "On my phone. Send it to your personal email and to Ms. Carter. Now." Graham saw their mouths move. "Security," he said, sharper this time. "Please retrieve the materials she removed from staff areas." Malik stepped slightly in front of Naomi. "Sir, that's her bag." "You are done here," Graham snapped. "Hand over your badge." The words hit harder than the video. Malik looked down. At the brass name tag on his chest, the one he had polished before every shift even when guests called him boy. Slowly, he unclipped it. Naomi watched his fingers shake. The cost of helping her had become real. She opened the blue folder just enough to slide out the staffing grid and tucked it into Caleb's backpack, behind a coloring book and a pack of crackers. A mother's bag was the one place Graham's eyes had not learned to fear yet. Then she whispered to Malik, "Where is the camera room?" He did not answer with words. He only looked once toward the West Service Hall. That was enough. Naomi moved before security closed in, not running, not hiding, just walking with the steady pace of a woman who knew panic made innocent people look guilty. Behind her, Graham raised his voice for the room to hear. "There she goes. That folder contains confidential hotel property." The accusation landed like a locked door. Investors stepped back. Security spread out. Evelyn called Naomi's name, but Naomi kept walking because now she knew exactly what Graham wanted. Not to remove her from the gala, but to turn the new owner into the thief before she ever reached the stage. Naomi reached the West Service Hall before security closed the distance. The door marked authorized personnel only was locked with a keypad, but the frame beside it was wet, swollen from the leak running through the wall. A hotel this expensive had learned how to hide damage behind flowers and gold trim. It had not learned how to stop water from telling the truth. She pressed the door once. It held. Behind her, Caleb's voice cracked from the reception room. "Mom!" That sound cut deeper than Graham's accusation. Naomi turned and saw him in the doorway, half awake, clutching his backpack while Evelyn tried to keep him from stepping into the crowd. 2 guards moved between Naomi and her child. For the first time that night, her face almost broke. Graham saw it and lowered his voice just enough for her to hear. "You should have left when I asked." Denise stood beside him with the same gentle sorrow on her face, as if Naomi's humiliation pained her. "Ms. Brooks, please don't make this worse." Worse. The word tasted bitter. Worse was Malik holding his badge in his palm like a lost tooth. Worse was Janelle crying over a report that could get her fired. Worse was Rosa's bandaged thumb hidden behind her apron because injury looked bad during investor season. Naomi slowly set the blue folder on a linen cart. "Search it," she said. Evelyn's eyes widened across the room. Graham smiled. A guard opened the folder and pulled out page after page. Legal tabs, sealed envelopes, acquisition summaries. His smile faltered, but only for a second. "Confidential documents," he announced. "Exactly as I said." "Read the signature line," Naomi said. Graham's hand shot out and snatched the top page before the guard could lower his eyes. This is not the place. You made it the place. A hush moved through the hallway, but Denise stepped in quickly. We have a distressed child, upset staff, and a woman refusing security instructions. Let's de-escalate. There was her mask again, smooth and useful. De-escalate meant very. Calm meant silence. Professional meant disappear. Naomi looked at Caleb. His backpack hung open. Inside, behind the coloring book, the folded staffing grid was still safe. Graham had searched the folder, not the bag. He had missed the thing that proved the pattern because he had only been looking for power, not people. Then a sharp voice came from the service alcove. Wait! An older housekeeper stepped forward, the same woman Denise had taken paper from earlier. Her name tag read Mrs. Alvarez. Her hands were red from chemicals, and she held a small black phone tight in both fists. That woman helped Rosa, she said, and she was right about the leak. Denise turned gently. Maria, this isn't necessary. Mrs. Alvarez flinched at the first name. Naomi noticed. Not Maria. Not here. A small clue suddenly rearranged. Denise had been familiar enough to comfort her in private and formal enough to erase her in public. Mrs. Alvarez looked at Naomi and then at the phone. I kept the audio. Graham's face changed. Not much. Just the blood leaving his mouth. Company policy prohibits unauthorized recording. Company policy also says we report injuries, Mrs. Alvarez whispered. But when we do, our hours disappear. Naomi stepped toward her, careful, open-handed. May I hear it? The older woman pressed play. Graham's voice came through tinny but clear. People like her only understand force. Get her out before the investors think we've lost our standards. No one moved. Caleb stopped crying. Malik looked up from his badge. The lie had not collapsed yet, but it had cracked. Graham reached for the phone. Naomi moved first, taking the linen cart and rolling it between them. Not dramatic, not loud, just enough to block his hand. No, she said. That belongs to her. It was the first time all night someone had protected a worker's evidence in front of the people trained to make evidence disappear. Naomi picked up the blue folder, then looked at Evelyn. Pull the camera logs. The edited clip, the lobby, the service hall, all of it. Evelyn nodded once. This time she was not rescuing Naomi. She was following Naomi's lead. Naomi turned to Malik. Take Caleb to the lounge and stay with him. But ma'am, I'm done being moved from room to room. She faced the ballroom doors, where the music was still playing as if nothing human had happened behind the walls. Now we walk back in, and nobody gets to call silence professionalism again. The ballroom doors opened on the last line of the quartet's song, and every face turned toward the service entrance Naomi had been dragged toward minutes earlier. She walked in first, the blue folder pressed against her side, mud still drying on the cuffs of her pants. Evelyn followed with her laptop open. Mrs. Alvarez held her phone like a candle in both hands. Graham moved fast, stepping onto the low stage before Naomi could reach it. I apologize again, he said into the microphone. This is exactly the disturbance we were trying to prevent. Naomi did not take the microphone from him. She looked at the screen behind him, then at the technician frozen beside the projector. Pull up the lobby camera at 7:14. Graham laughed once. She has no authority to request. I do, Evelyn said, and her voice cut clean through the room. Magnolia Crown's transfer documents were executed this evening. Until the public announcement, I am authorized counsel for the incoming ownership. The technician looked at the board chair. The chair nodded, slowly, confused and pale. The lobby video appeared. Full sound this time. The marble floor. The suitcase. Caleb coughing. Graham's voice. This is not a shelter, ma'am. A woman near the front covered her mouth. Naomi watched the room watch itself. Now the service corridor, she said. The edited clip Graham had shown appeared first. Then Evelyn placed the original beside it. The timestamp jumped in Graham's version. For missing minutes. In the original, Naomi pointed to water dripping near the electrical cord. Rosa held her bleeding thumb. Graham ordered security before anyone checked the hazard. That video was shortened for safety, Graham said quickly, to avoid showing staff injuries. Naomi turned toward him. Then why did your account export it before medical assistance was called? Evelyn clicked again. A log filled the screen. Username Gwitmore, export time, trim markers, file name, lobby_disruption_final. The word final sat there like a confession. Graham's mouth opened, but Denise stepped forward. Managers often prepare reports under pressure. That doesn't prove intent. Naomi nodded once. You're right, so let's talk about patterns. She lifted the staffing grid from Caleb's backpack, smoothing the creases against the podium. Janelle, did you alter this? Janelle stood near the dessert table, shaking. No, ma'am. Malik. No, Mrs. Alvarez? The older housekeeper raised her chin. No, Evelyn projected scan schedules from the past 6 months. Red marks. Doubles. Back corridors. Names repeated until the room could see what the employees had lived. Then came HR complaint records. 17 entries marked resolved without employee signatures. Denise's calm face finally cracked. Those were internal matters. They were people, Naomi said. Mrs. Alvarez's audio played next. Graham's voice filled the ballroom again. People like her only understand force. This time, no one whispered. Silence did the work. Graham grabbed the microphone. You don't understand what it takes to protect a luxury brand. Investors expect standards. Naomi stepped closer. Standards are clean exits, safe floors, paid tips, and children getting medicine before your ego gets protected. Evelyn opened the final document. The acquisition certificate appeared on the screen, signed, sealed, timestamped. Brooks Hospitality Renewal. Majority ownership transfer. Naomi Brooks, controlling owner. The board chair stood so quickly his chair scraped backward. The Gala announcer, pale and trembling, leaned into the second microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice breaking, please welcome the new owner of Magnolia Crown Resort, Ms. Naomi Brooks. The truth landed in the same room where the lie had been dressed in a suit. Graham looked at the muddy woman he had thrown out, then at the investors who no longer looked away. Naomi placed the blue folder on the podium, opened it fully for the first time, and the silver clasp clicked like a lock turning from the inside. Graham stepped back from the microphone, but there was nowhere left for him to stand tall. Naomi did not fire him with a raised voice. She asked Evelyn to read the violations into the record. Falsified security report, edited surveillance footage, employee intimidation, unsafe operations, and discriminatory conduct toward a guest and a child. Each sentence took another piece of his polished image away. Denise tried to speak next. Ms. Brooks, I was only following internal procedure. Naomi looked at Mrs. Alvarez, then at Rosa, then at Janelle. Procedure without signatures is not protection. It is silence with a logo on it. Denise lowered her eyes. Her access was suspended pending an outside investigation. Graham was escorted out through the same lobby doors where he had pointed Naomi earlier. No one clapped. That made it heavier. Malik stood near the side wall with Caleb asleep against his shoulder, the little boy's hand still wrapped around the strap of his backpack. Naomi crossed the ballroom and took her son gently. Then she turned back to the employees. No one loses hours for telling the truth tonight. Janelle covered her mouth and cried without sound. Rosa pressed her bandaged thumb to her chest. Mrs. Alvarez finally slipped her phone into her pocket, as if her hands had been shaking for years and had just learned they could stop. The board chair stepped forward, pale with shame. Ms. Brooks, we owe you an apology. Naomi held Caleb closer. You owe them one first. So he did. Not beautifully, not perfectly, but publicly. He faced the workers lined along the service doors and said the words powerful people often avoid. We failed to see what was happening because it was convenient not to look. Naomi did not promise miracles. She promised records. Deep outage. Restored wages. Independent HR review. A safety inspection before the next event. A staff council with voting power, not a suggestion box hidden near the break room. Malik and Janelle would help choose that council, not because they had been loyal to Naomi, but because they had protected the truth when it cost them something. Then Naomi lifted the blue leather folder from the podium. The mud on one corner had dried into a rough brown stain. Evelyn reached for a cloth, but Naomi stopped her. "Leave it." Hours earlier, that stain had been treated like proof Naomi did not belong. Now it sat beside the ownership seal, proof that the doors had been guarded by the wrong values. Caleb woke as she carried him into the lobby. The marble had been cleaned, but one faint muddy footprint remained near the brass table where his inhaler had rolled. He looked at it, then at her. "Are we leaving now?" Naomi looked through the glass doors at the rain slowing outside, then back at the employees waiting behind her, unsure whether justice was something that would last after the lights came down. "No," she said softly. "We're opening the doors wider." Months later, the Magnolia Crown had a new rule printed on every training badge. Muddy shoes are not a measure of worth. Staff called it the Muddy Shoes Policy. Parents traveling alone were offered quiet rooms without being asked to prove they belonged. Employees could report abuse to an outside line Graham could never touch. And in the main lobby, inside a glass case near the front desk, sat the dark blue folder with its stained corner and silver clasp. Not as a trophy, as a reminder that the woman they tried to throw out had not come back to own the building. She had come back to change what the building stood for.